Hey everyone, and welcome to my review for the Airpods Max. So this is going to be quite a long video, so I'm going to try my best to try and cut through this as fast as possible, but there are several different topics that I want to discuss, so let's crack on. Firstly, I've had these particular headphones since the 5th of January, I believe it is, and today we're on the 15th, so I've had them for roughly around 10 days. And in that time I've done my best to try and basically make use of everything that I could possibly think of in terms of different tests, as well as what my usage is actually going to be, and basically my reasoning to actually buy these in the first place. But what I'll do is I'll get on to my sort of conclusion at the end. Firstly, I just want to go through some of the different sections. So first up is design. So the design comes in two parts, obviously. So firstly it's the headphones themselves, and then it's the case. And what I want to do is, firstly I want to discuss it with the case on. So the case, I believe, as I've said in one of my previous videos, I think the case is very deliberate. Whether or not they thought that it would be received in the way that it has been, I'm not sure. But I think it's very deliberate in the sense that now that people have made it into a meme, I don't think they're going to be that bothered. I think they're happy to just go along with it because it's literally just free publicity. As I said, I personally don't mind the case. Main reason for that is because as far as protection goes, I actually have an additional case. So I have a video on this particular case, so if you've not seen that, I'll link that down below so you can go check that out. Not very expensive, so it basically fixes all of the so-called issues with regards to the case as far as the Airpods Max goes. Now, once we take it out of the case and we look at the Airpods themselves, these, I believe, are a very iconic kind of design. So they're very much in the sense that everything is simplified, and that's what I absolutely love about it. They're instantly recognizable. Nobody will doubt what these are. There's nobody that will be seen on the streets, none of the celebrities, the footballers, everybody who wants eventually will start getting these through once the actual stocks come back in. Once they get these, there's going to be no doubt. Nobody will have to doubt whether they're Beats, whether they're Sonys, whether they're Sennheisers, whether they're anything else. Basically there will be no doubt. Everybody will instantly recognize these as Airpods Max. So in terms of design, I think that's basically a win-win for them, and I personally really like the design. I like the feel of them. In terms of the headband and everything, I've got no issues with that at all. As far as comfort goes, we'll come on to that a little later on. In terms of the design, obviously before these came out, there were rumors of, mainly from John Prosser, who actually announced that there was going to be several different types of the AirPods Max, or AirPods Studio as they were rumored to be called back then. And back then the AirPods Studios were rumored to have been in two different flavors. So firstly there was going to be sort of the pro version or the luxury version, and then after that or alongside that would be a sort of sports version. And I'm glad that these are the actual luxury version, because the sports version doesn't really benefit me. It doesn't fit into my lifestyle, but that's something that we'll obviously discuss a little later when it comes to whether or not these are value for money, whether or not people should buy them, and whether or not they're worth the price as well. Obviously these ones are, it's a luxury product. It's designed for the sort of people and the sort of market where they just want something that works. It's not necessarily about having features such as, obviously we'll come on to it, but water resistance and being a good fit in terms of working out and things like that. These are heavy headphones, and even for somebody like me who's generally using these sat still, it is noticeable when you do move around that basically they are quite heavy. They will move around on your head as a result of that. In terms of the design of the headband, as I say, with regards to comfort, I've got zero complaints with these, because obviously this is a brand new product and I've been putting it through its paces. There have been several days, especially on the weekends, where I've been video editing and I've literally used this for maybe between 4 and 6 hours, with the odd break in between, and basically there's no issues at all with regards to either the band or even the ear cups causing any type of fatigue. The one slight sort of thing that obviously other people have also mentioned is down to the fact that you get that sort of condensation buildup, and I will discuss that a little later on. In terms of the buttons, so obviously you have your noise cancellation button there, and you have your digital crown just there. Now the digital crown, I'm actually kind of gutted because I wanted the haptic feedback that you get from the watch, but I understand why they didn't do it. Obviously for the simple reason that any type of vibration or haptic feedback that you get through a crown on a metal ear cup essentially will cause a lot of echoing and vibrations within the actual casing, and that probably wouldn't be a very nice experience. So I understand why they didn't do it. Anybody who's had the Apple Watch will know how good that is. That would have been really nice, but I understand why they didn't do it. But in terms of functionality, yeah, it works perfectly. The noise reduction and transparency button, there was a slight issue. As I say, I'll come on to that, and I'll discuss that when I get to the sort of bad bits of this particular product or this review. But in terms of the design, yeah, they work perfectly. And one thing I just wanted to know on the sort of digital crown essentially. So a lot of people have kind of looked at the digital crown in the sense that it's clockwise or counterclockwise, and I think that's the wrong way of looking at it, and that's probably why some people are wanting to switch it round. Essentially what you have to look at is, obviously I'm looking at the camera, so you guys are going to be getting this in reverse, but for me essentially, when I'm putting this on, and I don't want to do it because I've got my microphone on, but when I put it on, essentially in my mind what I'm thinking is, in order to increase the volume you want to go forward, and in order to decrease the volume you want to go backwards. And that is essentially what you do with the digital crown. So when you scroll forwards on the digital crown, you're increasing the volume, and when you're scrolling backwards on the digital crown, you're decreasing the volume. So once you think of it like that, then it makes a lot more sense. So you don't have to think, okay, this is clockwise or this is anti-clockwise. Clockwise will be higher, anti-clockwise will be lower. That's obviously the opposite. There are still people out there that will prefer it the other way, hence why you do have the option in the settings. I'll put a little clip in, insert it, just showing the actual settings part of the AirPods Max, and basically what options you do get essentially in there. So in terms of the buttons and everything like that, perfectly fine. Okay, so the next thing is sound quality. Obviously that's the main thing about these. What do they sound like? So I've got down that obviously it's a very tight, accurate sound with the right file and basically the right source material. So I have tested this with several different things. Obviously my primary use has been with my MacBook Pro and using it as my editing headphones, and essentially for that it's been perfectly fine. I've also tested it with some iTunes music, I've tested with movies, TV shows, other things like that, and I've also tested with certain files that I actually had downloaded on my MacBook Pro itself. And depending on what you actually put through it, your peak volume will vary quite a bit. Essentially, even when you throw the loudest sort of files you can find at it, it still won't clip, so you still won't get any distortion. And that's the one thing where it's very rare, and I've never really had a pair of headphones, possibly with the exception of the original AirPods, because the AirPods Pro for me were too bass heavy. They kind of just drowned everything out with a sort of artificial bass, where it wasn't really a deep rumble and it wasn't a kick either. So it had bass all the time for me, and basically it wasn't something that I really liked. With the AirPods Max, everything is just so well balanced. It's like there's no real it's the most flat equalizer that you could possibly set, but at the same time it does also enhance every aspect as well. So you do have the bass in there and it's very clean, and then you have those mids come through and they're also very clean, and then you have those sharp pin drop details in the highs, and once again very clean. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to just bring up was when the bass kicks in, and it's very strange. So these are the first headphones that I've actually used over here headphones where when the bass kicks in, they it's almost as though the excursion of the woofers themselves are actually pushing them away from your face essentially, and you can hear the sort of or feel the air move down out the bottom of the cups, because most of the pressure is going to be towards the top, and just at the bottom you can almost feel them vibrate and sort of push the air out. And similarly, just on the back of the aluminium cups as well, you get a lot of vibration and sensation of the bass, which you wouldn't really expect in a woofer or a driver of this size. So that's something that's been a bit of a surprise for me, just how the bass actually reacts in terms of these being closed back headphones, and how much of that actually kicks back out through the obviously the sort of foamy material, as opposed to being any type of leather or anything like that. Because this is a foam, essentially it does have some leakage, and leakage is something that I'll come on to a little later as well. Okay, so in terms of sound leakage, these are not the kind of headphones that you want to use in bed when you're trying not to disturb somebody else if you can have them cranked up. Main reason for that is basically there's a lot of sound leakage as soon as you go above, say, half. Even with, because obviously you're going to have either transparency mode enabled or you're going to have noise reduction. For the best sound quality, I'd probably say put the noise reduction on, just to block out any ambient noise, and then they are really pin sharp in terms of all your details and everything like that. But what does happen is even anything above half, and generally you're going to get a lot of sound leakage, simply because of the type of design, and because this is more of a fabric as opposed to being a sort of closed leather type material. Because of that, there is a lot of sound leakage, especially, I mean, once you push it up full, everybody can basically hear it. So on a bus, whatever you're listening to, everybody's going to be able to hear it. Whether they may not hear it in the way that you're hearing it, and it'll sound very tinny to them, but it does come through a lot when you've actually got these pumped up all the way. Okay, so I did actually purchase the Lightning to 3.5mm headphone jack adapter as well. In terms of sound difference between having it wired or wireless, in my testing for possibly I'd say 90% of the material out there, you're not really going to notice any difference. In terms of latency and everything like that, it was almost identical. And just while we're on the topic of latency, I have been using these primarily as my editing headphones. And the main reason for that is I like to basically sit in the same room as my daughter whenever basically I'm doing my editing, just so then basically everybody's home at the moment anyway. For those who aren't aware, UK is in lockdown, and as a result obviously all the kids are off school, and I don't like going away and doing this. I can actually put it on transparency mode, and whilst that's going on, obviously I can listen to everything around me. And then when I'm actually doing some of the editing where I need to actually splice some of the audio, maybe fine tune something, I can just put noise reduction mode on for that short moment. Even if people are making noise around me, it doesn't really affect it too much in terms of how I'm able to edit using these. And then obviously it comes to the issue of latency, and I actually found that I didn't actually need the cable initially, and the only reason I actually unboxed the cable was literally just to test it out. The cable is very thin. Okay, so here we have the actual cable, and I did order in white because generally when it comes to any of my cables I prefer them being in white, just so then they're a bit easier to find basically. I keep everything organized, as you can see this it's still kind of retaining its shape, and I generally keep this in the same bag as my MacBook Pro, and basically whenever I need them I'll just unplug them and plug them in. Now other people have commented on the cable as well, the fact that it's very thin. Some people might see that as a negative, but I think I might know why they've done it. Obviously with this being a metal casing, any type of sort of vibrations or sounds that actually touch on the outside of these cups is essentially amplified, and it works its way through. So essentially what you want is you want the least amount of noise on anything around or connected to the actual AirPods Max themselves. And for that reason, obviously the thinner this cable is, the less likely it is to actually carry any type of vibrations or sounds up to the ear cups themselves. Now the other thing that obviously people have mentioned is the fact that it's on the right hand side compared to the left on every other headphone out there. This once again I think is literally just to work compatibility wise better with Mac products, because obviously the headphone jack on my MacBook Pro is also on the right hand side. So for me personally that just works perfectly, because it's literally plug it in and I've not got wires crisscrossing across me. In terms of the cable itself, as I say, it's not really much different for me. From my testing, for most things, it's almost identical. Obviously, once you plug the cable in, it does perform better in terms of any type of editing, and your latency is obviously right down to almost instant, as fast as it can be via 3.5mm headphone jack. But in terms of the Bluetooth latency, that is also good enough. Now for me personally, because I don't edit using music, that's slightly easier for me. For people that do use music in the background, obviously they're going to need a lot more precise sort of adjustments and cuts, and for that reason, obviously for the price of this thing, people have commented saying it's way overpriced. I'm not really that bothered about £35 when it comes to something that is going to actually benefit you in your work. Hence why I'll come on to the price thing a little later on as well. So in terms of wireless and wired sort of connectivity and latency, it's about the same, to be fair. For most things, you're not really going to notice any issues. The video editing is maybe the one area where you might find that you want the wire. Other than that, I've literally, as I say, I've not really had to use these even when editing. I did try it out, and yes, it does make it better, but even the latency as it is good enough to the point where I can actually happily use these for video editing without the need for the cable. So I ordered the cable before the headphones even came, knowing what I'd ordered the headphones for, basically for productivity essentially, and thinking that I was gonna need the wire, because I have used my Beats X headphones as well for editing prior to these arriving, and whilst they were workable, they weren't ideal. A lot of things I would start to recognize certain waveforms simply because I was editing it out that many times, but the headphones themselves maybe wouldn't pick it up until it was maybe 2 or 3 frames later. So obviously for that kind of thing, these actually perform a lot better. Right, so the next topic is noise cancellation and transparency mode. So I'm not going to delve too deep into this because I've actually done a separate video where I actually give you samples and give you essentially a live preview of what these actually sound like, what the transparency mode is like, how good the noise cancellation is with regards to music and also white noise. I've also tested these just generally around the house. In order to test for that condensation issue, obviously I've worn them for long periods when I've not even been listening to anything. So I've literally just had these on just to see if I can actually replicate that issue. And during that period, I'll turn the noise cancellation on and off, and basically it cancels out. It doesn't cancel out everything. You're not going to find any noise cancelling headphones out there without them being sort of custom fit for your ears and your head shape. Where they're going to cancel everything out. That's not what they're designed to do, but it cancels out enough, and it cancels out all the stuff that would possibly cause an issue, say for example on a plane journey, a car journey, something like that. Any of those sort of noises that you get that gives people headaches over long periods of time, and that's something that I basically wanted, because especially in recent years, I found that obviously whilst we're not doing much traveling right now, I started suffering more and more headaches, more and more migraines from any type of travel where you had a constant noise in the background. And I hopefully, if we ever return to that, that sort of status quo, if you like, where we can then just travel freely and we can also fly around the world, then hopefully these will pay for themselves when it comes to that kind of thing. Coming on to comfort. So as I said, I've worn these for between 4 and 6 hours in a single go. And that is simply just to test the comfort and everything. And the only sort of detriment I could actually find in terms of comfort wise was the fact that the ear cups do heat up. So obviously it's your body heat that's being transferred into the actual cushion area of these cups. and more so on the cups themselves. That's where I actually felt, as soon as you take them off after you've had them on for a long time, it's almost like a release. It's similar to like when you come out of the shower, and if your house is cold, all of a sudden you feel the cold a lot more. And that's kind of what these are like, where if you've had them on for a long period of time, say a few hours, once you take them off, it's almost like an instant evaporation of the sort of heat surrounding that area of your head essentially. And I have taken the cups off. What I will do is I'll try and insert a video if I can, if I manage to record one. Obviously there's been a massive thing about the fact that people are getting not just condensation, they're getting full-blown sweat buildup inside their ear cups, and I'm not sure if this will actually show up on camera or not. What I might do is I'll try and take a few photos and insert the photos of some of these sort of it's almost like a misting that you get on mine anyway. This is what I've experienced. So I get a tiny little misting, and as you wipe your hands, it's almost as though it's like the condensation you would get built up on your windows, where on their own they don't look much, but when you wipe your finger across, it will then become a bead of water. Now the maximum I've actually managed to actually replicate, even after several hours of wearing these. So I think on one of the days I actually wore these for 6 hours, and on that particular day I did manage to get a few droplets of water. When it comes to that particular issue, am I concerned by it? And the answer is no. And the reason for that is, whilst I don't think Apple have thought everything through, clearly they didn't think through the reaction to the actual carrying case. But the reason I don't think this is going to be an issue is something that I actually highlighted in the unboxing video, and that is the fine mesh that is actually behind, so it's behind the grill but in front of the actual woofer itself. And the reason I think that sort of negates any type of condensation buildup, unless it's really bad that you're getting, I don't think it's going to be an issue, for the simple reason that that mesh appears to be so fine. It's very similar to what you would possibly get in the, say for example, the earpiece on your phone, where it's an open area, similar to your speaker ports. They're all open areas, and yet water doesn't actually ingress into them, for the simple reason that the grill essentially is so fine and is so close together that the water droplets can't actually travel through it. Anything that's small enough to get through it will probably just evaporate. Anything big enough won't be able to get through it. So I'm not really too worried in that sense. The other reason I'm not really too concerned is because of how I actually replicated the issue in the first place. So I had to wear these for a very long time, and I was literally sat right next to a radiator in order to basically heat my body up as much as possible. And that was the only way I could actually get it to replicate what you might have seen on the internet, essentially, with the massive sort of droplets and loads of them gathered in the ear cups themselves. For me, it's literally just been condensation, so it's literally been a light wipe that you might see in there, but you can tell when it's going to be there by when you actually take it off your ears, and you'll actually feel as that sort of release, and you'll know that, yeah, if my ears are that hot, then possibly the ear cups will also be that hot. Now the fact that the ear cups do heat up so much, I think they'll probably be absorbing most of any type of condensation build-up that might be happening as a result of that. That's my take on it. I'm not really that concerned. Obviously I am still within my return period, so if I was concerned by it, I could send these back. But I'm not going to, not for that reason anyway. So that wouldn't be the reason I would send these back if I was going to send them back. Okay, so coming on to the sort of bad points, and obviously I've just touched on the condensation issue. As I say, I have been able to kind of replicate it, but not to the extent any of the photos on the internet have been able to. Now coming on to the next sort of negative point, and that is with my particular headphones. What I did was, obviously when I first got them, I set them up straight after the unboxing. I didn't do it during the unboxing because I was actually using this phone to record with, and basically I wanted it to be paired with that phone and not one of my other ones, simply because this is the only one that's actually using my iCloud account at the moment. So I paired it up and I did loads of testing on that phone, on the MacBook Pro, on my Apple TV, on iPads, all sorts of different devices, on my Apple Watch. And what I found was, once I actually got to the point where I was doing the sort of endurance test, if you like, I was doing some editing on the MacBook Pro, and I kept toggling noise reduction on and off, and all of a sudden the tone that you get for noise reduction stopped. So it wasn't actually making that tone anymore. And initially I thought maybe that's just something that they've worked into the sort of software to sort of make it better for those who are toggling it on and off whilst connected to something where they might be doing video editing. So just to avoid that tone. But then I switched back to my iPhone and it was still doing the same thing. And now the other thing I noticed whilst it was failing to do the tone was that the button was also a little less responsive. So I would press it and it wouldn't actually do anything. If I held it for say a second, then it would actually toggle. And the other thing was, right now I could click this literally second after second after second and it would toggle on, off, on, off, on, off. Back then what it was actually doing was I would have to wait a little while at least before it would actually allow me to switch between either one. Now at that time when I did do it, I also did enable off mode. So obviously you have noise reduction, you have transparency mode, and then you have the middle, which is just off, so nothing. And generally I'm not going to use it. I only enable that just to test it, and it's neither here nor there. The battery life in terms of these is just as good with transparency or noise reduction enabled, so there's no real point in having the off sort of option there, if you like. So I did turn that off, but obviously it was giving me this issue, so I literally just reset it. And to reset it, you just hold both buttons. So you hold the digital crown in, you hold the noise reduction button, and it'll just reset it. You get a white light, I believe. So initially it goes orange and then it turns to white, I believe, and that just means it's been reset and you can go back into sort of pairing mode, if you like. So yeah, that was the one sort of software bug that I've had on the headphones themselves. Now on the MacBook Pro, what I did also notice was I've had a few Bluetooth issues in terms of occasionally when my iPhone is next to me, I'll be editing something on the MacBook Pro, and even if I just touch the iPhone, or if I just move it and the screen comes on, it'll automatically switch back to it, and then I'll have to repair it or connect it again on the MacBook Pro itself just to get it to actually switch back over. Now in terms of switching between devices, it's been pretty good. All the devices I've tested on my Apple TV, iPads, iPhones, MacBook Pro, it's worked on all of them. The one time you can kind of throw this off is if you leave one device open and you switch to another one and then you switch back to the first one again. If it's the MacBook Pro, that's generally where you're going to get an issue, if you do get an issue. But other than that, that's literally me being nitpicky. Also, a couple of occasions when I've actually taken them out, put them on, it'll bring up the little prompt in my top right hand corner saying Airpods Max connected. But when I actually go to Final Cut Pro and I scrub the timeline, it's still playing through the internal speakers. And because I've got them on, noise cancellation is on. So because generally I have the MacBook Pro speakers turned down, I won't actually hear it. So for me, I'm thinking, what's happened to the audio? And then when I actually switch it, that's when I realized, no, the audio is working. It's just on the MacBook Pro as opposed to being through the AirPods. So generally to fix that, you just need to toggle Bluetooth on and off. But I did also have that same issue with the Beats X headphones as well, where occasionally Bluetooth can be a little bit of an issue, and I think that's a general theme on Bluetooth with some of the new Macs, and obviously some of the existing Bluetooth issues that Apple have had with certain devices in the past anyway. It's not the end of the world. It happens, say, maybe once every 2 or 3 days. When it does happen, obviously it's very easy to remedy, so it's not the end of the world, but I thought I'd still mention it. Okay, and coming on to the last sort of negative about the AirPods Max, and that is obviously the price. And that's where in my unboxing video I did make a point of stating that I wanted to actually discuss the price point and essentially why I bought these. So for me personally, I saw these as an investment, and it's something that I've been wanting for a very long time. As I mentioned in that video, AirPods Max is a product or a concept that I've been wanting and needing for quite a long time. So I loved the AirPods Pro, but they just didn't work in my ears because I just can't use in-ear earphones, essentially, noise cancelling or otherwise, for the length period of time that I need when I'm doing editing and things like that. Initially, when I actually started editing on my MacBook Pro, when I got it, the Beats X, after a little while, I'd have to keep taking them out because I just can't use in-ear headphones for that period of time. Now, over-ear headphones is a different matter. At work, I'm always using ear defenders, and I've just kind of got used to it. So I know a lot of people have complained about the sort of pressure that you get on the sides of your ears, but for me it would have been more of an issue, especially with my sort of thinning hair. It would have been more of an issue. That's actually just reminded me of another point, but I'll get onto that in a little while. It would have been more of an issue comfort wise for me if this top band had been something where it would actually put pressure on the top. So in terms of pressure sideways, that's not really too much of an issue for me. I did also just remember one thing, and that is this mesh, and the one sort of downside I can see of this mesh. So obviously I've got quite thin hair at the moment. Every summer generally I tend to shave or trim all my head, buzz cut basically, 0 grade all over. And when that grows back, what I notice is whenever I'm wearing hats, caps, anything like that, any slight movement on it and it will snag your hair very quickly. Anybody who's had short hair will understand this. If you try putting a beanie hat or something like that on, you're almost fighting against your hair to try and get it on. With these, that's the one area where I can see that the headband being an issue, because especially for even right now, I've felt it in certain places where if you put it on like that and then you go to adjust it and you move it forward or backwards, what actually happens is it'll snag that hair, and because it can go through this mesh, that's probably the most uncomfortable thing about the headband. It's easily rectified by simply lifting off, putting it down and pulling it forward, obviously whichever direction your hair grows, but that's the one slight sort of issue I can see with the headband itself. But yeah, coming back onto the price, for me, I needed some noise cancelling headphones, not only for the video editing, which I do a lot more of nowadays, but also for whenever things return to normality and we can once again start traveling. Once that actually happens, and we're going on trains, planes, cars, whatever, that's where I need something like this, something just to take some of the pressure off. Planes is probably going to be less of a thing for me personally, but car journeys was something where, even a journey that I used to be able to do quite easily when I was younger, in recent years I found that something where you're driving for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, it would instantly start to give me that sort of buzzing pain that you get just before a migraine's about to kick in. And something like this would literally make such a big difference to me. That's obviously something that's more further down the line, but instantly right now, in terms of value for money, there's so many different levels to it. So for my video editing, as I said, the latency is so good on these that I can use these without the cable. If I did ever add in music, which I personally probably won't, into the videos, then I'd probably need to use it wired. But even as they are, they're good enough to the point where I can actually use these for video editing without the need for the wire. Then it comes on to just general sort of experience as well. So as you can see behind me, I'm really into my sort of home theatre, and generally any type of shows, movies, those kind of anything blockbuster wise, any really good shows that I'm looking forward to, I'll always watch on the settle behind me. But any of those other shows or just general YouTube videos when I'm laying in bed, things like that, ordinarily I'd still have to listen to it through either the phone speakers, or I'd have to put in some in-ear headphones essentially. With these, you're getting such a good sound stage, and just for all of those occasions where I can literally just pop these on and basically have it working instantly. And that is brings me on to sort of the final point about these, and one of the things that people have moaned about more than anything else, and that is the fact that you have no power button. And for me personally, I think maybe I'm the only one out there, but this is literally the perfect thing. This is what I've been wanting on headphones since wired headphones, since there wasn't a need for batteries inside headphones essentially, where you literally just plug it in and it's good to go. These are even a step beyond that, where you literally just put them on and they're ready to go. I don't want to have to deal with turning things on, turning things off. One of the most annoying things about editing using my Beats X headphones, whilst the battery life on those was actually very, very good, obviously you don't want to just have them lying about killing the battery for no reason, so I'd still have to turn them off. And the power button on those, it's always a case where you have to hold it for a certain amount of seconds. Now, it's being extremely nitpicky and extremely first world sort of problem, but I don't want to hold stuff for 2 or 3 seconds to turn it on and off. I never turn my iPhone off. I never turn my iPads off. I don't see a need to turn my headphones off. If you make use of them, then you're always going to have charge in them. And if you don't make use of them, that's when they'll go into standby, they'll go into the super low power mode, and they'll save that battery life. Obviously, if you know that you're going on a trip or something, plug them in, give them a charge. Maybe it's just me, maybe it's just the way that I am. I always have everything charged whenever I've used anything: cameras, batteries, lighting, headphones, even my MacBook Pro. Whenever I've used it to a certain extent, I'll always put it on charge just to make sure it's ready for the next time I need it. But the beauty of this is very similar to the beauty of the MacBook Pro, in the sense that you just open it and it's ready to go. You touch your watch and it's ready to go. You touch your phone and it's ready to go. You touch your iPad and it's ready to go. None of these things, you don't, with the exception of the MacBook Pro, because that you can actually shut down fully. None of the other devices would be shut down by me. That's just how I use them. And for anybody else out there that's just looking for something extremely simple, so you never have to worry that have I turned it on, have I turned it off, have I left it in the carrying case turned on and you come back to it and the battery's dead. It ends up in the same situation either way. So the fact that these go into low power mode, they go into super low power mode, and they save you the battery life by doing so, if anything, actually it's an improvement, where it's one less worry for you, one less thing that you need to think about. And maybe I'm just getting old, but at this point in my life, I just want things to work. I want things set up in a way where you just put them on and they're working. I don't want to have to fiddle about changing settings. The whole ecosystem, if you like, with Apple, the way it switches between devices and then also gives you the extra functionality. Obviously, I've not even discussed spatial audio in this video. That's something that obviously, if you wanted to, you could experience that through one of the other videos that I've actually got coming, where I actually give you a demo of spatial audio using these. But essentially, for me, this is a product that, while it's not perfect, there are still a few little nitpicky kind of things that you could still rectify. Obviously, the Bluetooth issue, the condensation issue, the price, obviously the price. Whilst I don't mind paying the price, and I think it was softened a little for me by the fact that I actually did that trade-in, which meant that I had £80 vouchers sat there. So essentially, these only cost me £460 cash. The price, everybody still wants things cheaper, but essentially I would rather have, and this is something that goes for the iPhones as well, so I would rather have a better product and pay the price that is due or necessary, rather than cut certain features and make it worse. So for example, if this was, say, I don't know, 100, 200 pounds cheaper and it went to a plastic build, that isn't something that I would want. If it got rid of transparency mode, or it just wasn't quite as good. They got rid of some of the microphones and they gave you transparency mode, but just not on the same sort of level, then it's something that basically it wouldn't be this product. And the only reason I'm keeping these is because it is this product where it fulfills everything I need from it. Now, does that mean these are the perfect headphones for everybody? No. And I would actually go as far as to say most people shouldn't buy these headphones for the simple reason that if you have to moan about the price, then it's not for you. If you have to moan about the condensation sort of issue, then similarly again, it's not for you, because that's a worry in the back of your mind that is going to bring this product down for you. That's not something that I really think about. I tested it out, I tried to replicate it, I did my best, and I kind of got a few droplets of water eventually. But it's not something that, as some YouTubers have said, everybody should be sending every single one of these back and get Apple to redesign the whole product, which we know isn't going to happen. Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it is the perfect product in terms of what I need from it. And that's something that for any of my long-term subscribers, they'll know. Whilst I will pay high amounts of money for certain products, I'll only pay it if it serves a certain purpose and it brings value to my particular setup, my life essentially. And these do bring extra value and extra functionality to my lifestyle. That's why for me personally, this is a lifestyle product. It's not necessarily the best sounding. There may even be other alternatives out there that can replicate 9/10 of the functionality that you get from these. Maybe not exactly in the terms of switching between devices, but you'll get stuff that replicates a lot of it, but it just won't do it quite as well, and it won't do it as well with Apple products. And that is, as you all know, that is my ecosystem now. HomeKit, Apple TV, MacBook Pro, iPhone, Apple Watch, iPads, all these kind of things, they just work so well together that something like this can be brought out and it just instantly fits into your lifestyle. But as I say, not everything will, and this is a product that I would say for anybody in the Apple ecosystem, obviously, and depending on how invested you are and how willing you are to stay in that ecosystem, then this is a product that I think everybody should check out. So definitely go and hear these if over-ear headphones is something that even interests you. But I don't think it's a product that will actually suit every person out there. For those looking for an alternative though, and for those who are in the Apple ecosystem, the AirPods Pro do probably, I'd say 90% of what these can do, just without that last sprinkle, the final sort of levels that take these way beyond. For me personally, these are worth it. So this is value for money for me personally because of my lifestyle. Not necessarily even for music, mainly for everything else that I use them for. Music is basically the lowest of the sort of tier in terms of functionality and what I'm using these for. But yeah, for me personally, these are value for money. For you guys out there, obviously that's something that you guys need to make your decision about yourself. If I have obviously left something out that you are still curious about, then just drop it down in the comment section below. I've gone on for way too long, considering I was trying to make this video as quick as possible, so I'll try and wrap up now. If you haven't already done so, please do subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate if you gave the video a thumbs up and also hit that notification bell. That way you won't miss out on any new videos that I post. And other than that, thanks very much for watching.